Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message, it comes from a translation of a message that I received, and the message reads like this. Hello my brother, how are you? Can you please post my story as hidden identity? My brother, I have my own story that I want to share with you, and the story reads like this. So, my grandfather and his brothers, they migrated from Malawi and they came to Zim. At first, they were working on this other farm, and after that, they then went their own separate ways. But our grandfather, he remained behind. That was when he got married to our grandmother. After they had gotten married, they had their children, which are my father and his brothers. And after that, they then went into this other village. That was where they had their homestead. That is our family homestead, even up until today. But my story, my brother, it is about one of our own auntie. This auntie of ours, she was the second wife to my father's elder brother. What happened is that when my father and his brothers were now young men, they traveled from the village and they went to the city in search of better opportunities. Whilst they were in the city, that was when they decided that they wanted to get married. And our father's elder brother, he then decided that he wanted to have two wives. The first wife that he got married to, she was a Zimbabwean. Then the second wife that he got married to, she was a Malawian woman. And he only got married to her because he wanted to impress his father, our grandmother. But what happened is that as soon as he had gotten married to his second wife, there was a lot of misfortunes that started happening in the family. Our homestead was struck 2 times by lightning, and they started accusing her of witchcraft simply because she was from Malawi. But what they didn't know is that his first wife was the one who was a witch, and to hide her wickedness, she then cast a spell upon the second wife so that everyone will just blame her and everyone will just say that she was the one who was bewitching the family. And this thing, it did not stop with the family only, but the whole village started blaming her. And whenever she would speak with me, because me and her, we had a very strong bond because everyone just hated her. So when we were talking, she will tell me of all of these stories. She said that when it will be raining season, she always prayed to God that, God, let not lightning strike anything in this village, because whenever lightning will strike anything in the village, then the whole village will blame her, and the village will say that she was the one who was committing all of this wickedness. It even reached a point that there was too much land. It even reached a point whereby when people saw that there was too much lightnings that were striking people's homesteads, and they suspected that it was her who was doing all of these evil things, so they decided to drag her to the village court. And when she went to the village court, she was made to confess, but this was nothing but a false confession, and she was afraid of what these people wanted to do, because some of them, she said, were threatening to kill her, but they wanted to stone her to death. Some wanted her to be burned alive, but it was only at the mercy of the village chief that she was made to confess, and she gave a false confession that indeed she was a witch. And at that time, she said she was somewhere around 6 months pregnant, and when she was forced to give a false confession wanting to save her life, she then confessed that indeed she was a witch and she was the one who was responsible for all the death that had been happening in the village and all of the thunderstorms that were affecting the village. After that, she was made to pay, but she could not pay because she didn't have any livestock. She told me that for 2 years she was working at the chief's homestead. She was more like a slave because she could not afford to pay whatever the price that the chief had instructed her to pay for bringing her wickedness into the village. And at that time, she said, whilst the court was going on and everyone was busy calling her a witch. She said that she felt that her waters had just broken, and she could not understand, because as far as she knew, she was not yet ready to be in labor, but she felt the labor pains and the baby was already coming. That was when she screamed, and after she had screamed, people thought that it was the demon that was leaving her body. But when people saw that she was about to give birth, that was when she was rushed into another house, and there were some elderly women that assisted her in giving birth. And when she gave birth, that was when they found out that this was a full-term baby. So no one could even understand how it was even possible that she had given birth to a full-term baby at only about 6 months pregnant. And the baby, when it came out, she said that the baby had 2 teeth on the top of the gums, but until she died, whenever she will tell me this story, she will end up crying. And she said that the people at the village then dragged her back to the court after she had recovered from giving birth, and she was made to confess again that she had cheated on our uncle. But she had not cheated on our uncle. She felt that it was better that she confessed that this was not a child at all, but this was more like a tokoloshi / a goblin that she had given birth to. And this goblin was ready to be given meat, and she wanted to sacrifice some people in that village so that she can feed her baby. So everyone, she said, was really angry at her, and they dragged the baby from her and they wanted to burn the baby. But she cried and she pleaded for mercy. And she said that if she could be allowed to breastfeed her child, but she was not going to use her milk. If people were going to give her goat milk, then the goat milk was going to cure the baby. Then the baby will not become a tokoloshi / a goblin like it was supposed to. Then they made sure that she was going to be separated from her child until her milk had dried up. She said that she suffered for several nights when she kept on hearing a child screaming and crying for milk, but she was not allowed to breastfeed a child. After her milk had dried up, that was when she was made to give the child goat milk. After that, that was when our family said that they wanted to make sure that the baby that she was about to bring into the family compound was one of their own. So back in those days, they didn't have any DNA or any scientific method of testing the paternity of the child. So when she returned back from the chief's compound, she was then instructed to place the baby at the entrance of the kettle. And whilst she was placing the baby at the entrance of the kettle, the cows, they were being headed from the pastures. So the idea was that our ancestors, they live among the cattle. So if this child was one of their own, they were going to stop the cattle from stepping on top of the baby. But if this child was not one of their own, then they were going to leave the cattle to step on the child. Thereby the child was going to die. My uncle's wife, I still remember whenever she would tell me this story, she would say that she wanted to cry as she watched the cattle as they were approaching at a distance, but she was not allowed to cry. There were some men that were holding her because she wanted to go and to remove her child, because the child kept on crying. The child was confused and did not understand what was going on. So all the cattle made their way through that small entrance where that baby was laid onto the ground, and if any of those cattle were going to step on her, for sure this child was going to die, and she was not allowed to cry. The cattle came one by one and they made their entrance into the cattle kraal whilst everyone was watching. Not even a single cow dared to step on the child. Even the big bull, it was always the last one to enter into the cattle kraal. When it entered into the cattle kraal, it did not even look at the child. It just went past the child without stepping on the child. avoiding the child, as this was just a natural obstacle that was standing in its way. So after that, she was then accepted back into the family, but she never found peace, because that charm that had been used upon her, it was a curse that she was going to carry as a burden for the rest of her life. She was always criticized of being a witch. Anything bad that would happen in our family, she was the first one to be criticized. Then was a time when she fell pregnant again. She said this was after the death of her child, because her child, after she had been accepted into the family, one day the child just died. But I suspect that this child died because of severe malnutrition, because they were denying her to feed the baby, thinking that if she was going to feed the baby, then the baby will become strong and will be transformed into a tokoloshi / a goblin. So they didn't want her to feed the baby. She even said that by the time that she fell pregnant again, there was a time when she felt that her breasts were now filled with milk. That was when she started having strange dreams. Each and every time at night, she would see some tokoloshis that would enter into that hut that she used as her bedroom. Then those two tokoloshis, they will start breastfeeding on her, one on the other breast and another one on her other breast, until they had finished breastfeeding her. Only after they would taste her blood. This was an every night thing. And after they had finished breastfeeding on her, that is when they would lick her nipples so that the saliva would stop the blood from flowing out of the breast. And after that, that was when she said she felt that her baby was no longer that playful inside her womb. Then 3 days later, she had a miscarriage. After she lost her second child, then she fell pregnant again for the third time. After she had fallen pregnant for the third time, she said that there was a time that they had an argument as women that were sharing the same husband. Then the day that she was supposed to deliver the child, yes, she went into labor. But what happened is that after she had given birth, this was at night, then she was told that she had given birth to a frog. And this was quite a mysterious thing that had happened in the village at that time. So word was now spreading around that the witch from Malawi had given birth to a frog, and everyone was now very sure that our auntie was a witch. Everyone was just saying that, witch, get out of our village. People were afraid of her. Even my own mother, they didn't even want us to associate with our auntie, but she lived a very lonely life, and I was the only one who used to sneak out of the house so that I can be with her, because she was such a sweet soul. Even the day that she died, she was all alone without anyone to assist her. I don't know what was happening to her. Maybe she had this disease all along, but she used to have some epileptic seizures. Maybe it was caused by all the stress that she was going through. For many weeks, she had fallen sick. And my father's elder brother, he was not around, so there was no one who could go inside her hut to check up on her, because there were rumors that there were a lot of tokoloshis that were seen roaming around inside her bedroom. So there was no one who had the courage to go and check up on her. So when she had fallen sick for several weeks without eating anything, she was really weak, and there was no one who was willing to come and cook for her. Even I was really scared, because my mother had told us of several stories. My mother had said that if we dared to give her any food, then tokoloshis would come to attack us at night, and they were going to suck up our blood. So I was really scared. I used to sneak out with some fruits in my pocket, then I would go and give her. But I once had this dream whereby there were some two tokoloshis that were chasing chasing me, and I could not escape from those two tokoloshis that were chasing me because I was running in slow motion. I don't know if you have ever had a dream whereby you will be running in slow motion. So I was really scared, and I had believed all the stories that my mom had told me about my auntie, so I avoided her even though we were staying in the same compound. My brother, people are very heartless, and after the death of our auntie due to starvation, I think that her blood is upon our heads, and I think that this is going to cause a lot of problems for the next generation if this issue is not sorted out. But amongst the remaining brothers to my father, they do not even want to discuss about this issue. Our uncle's first wife, she was the one who was a witch, so after our uncle had gotten married, that was when the first wife took dog poo, and when she took the dog poo, she mixed it with water, and she gave the second wife to my uncle, who had been recently married by our uncle, that one who was from Malawi. She then gave her a cup of water to drink when they had returned from working in the fields, because when she had arrived, she pretended as if she was very happy that they will be now sharing the same husband, but deep down she was really angry. After they had returned from the fields, that was when that second wife to my uncle said that she was feeling really thirsty. Already she had crushed some dog poo, so she then said that she should sit down and she would go into the kitchen where the drinking water was kept. She then took a glass and mixed some powder that she had crushed out of the dog poo that she had dried, and just like people find dog poo to be very disgusting, that is the kind of charm that she placed on her, that whoever would look at her would find her to be very disgusting. And that is how she died. I still remember the day that she died. It was early in the morning. She woke up, and for the first time for many weeks, she opened her door. And from the look of things, I saw that she was not okay at all. There was grief inside her eyes, as if she wanted to tell me that this was the last time that we would be looking at each other. Everyone, my brother, was there. People were just sitting outside, and no one even bothered to assist her. She fell several times whilst she was walking to this other place that we used to keep firewood, and she took firewood and returned back into her bedroom. It was more like she was just crawling back into her bedroom, and she tried to cook, but she was really weak. This part of the story makes me want to cry because of the things that happened. Right now my eyes are filled with tears of pain, of all the things that we did to her as a family, even though at that time I was still a small child, but what we did is very wrong. When she returned into her bedroom, that was when she had another episode, and she had an epileptic seizure. So she had already started the fire, and when she had that seizure, she fell on top of the fire, and there was no one who could drag her out of the fire. So her clothes catched the fire, and the fire started burning her, because the way that she fell on top of the fire, it was on her stomach area. By the time that people saw that her house was on fire, it was a little bit too late. They went and they dragged her body out of that bedroom, and they quenched the fire. When they looked at her, even though she was still breathing, it was just pointless, because her organs in the stomach area were more like fluid that was just dripping out of her. That is how she passed away. When she passed away, she was just groaning in agony, showing that she was in severe pain, and the clinic and the hospital was very far away, and there was no one who could rush her there. After that, she just passed away. Then she was buried. But even the way that she was buried, my brother, she was buried in a separate place, because back in our village, like at our homestead, there is an area where we bury our relatives as a family. These graves, they are close to the fields, but as for our uncle's wife, they chose to bury her on the other part of the field. Her grave is all alone. Even in death, she is just a lone spirit. She is buried underneath this other tree. But that tree, my brother, each and every time that I travel from South Africa going back to Zim, I find it to be green. I don't know where it gets the water from, but I have never seen that tree ever going dry. It is always green. I don't know where it gets the water from, but the other trees around the fields, they even have the season whereby they lose all of their leaves, but this tree, my brother, it is always green. The only thing that I am afraid about, my brother, is that if we are going to have a generational curse because of all the things that our family did to this auntie of ours.